My boyfriend made me wait 2 hours at one of the most expensive rooftop restaurants in Austin for our anniversary. When he finally showed up, with three of his friends, all laughing and buzzed, he looked right at them and said, "See? Told you she'd still be here, like a loyal little cat." They burst out laughing. I had just made the final payment on the $10,000 loan for his real estate license the week before. I thought we were going to celebrate. I thought it was going to be special, romantic, meaningful. Instead, I sat there, completely humiliated, while the man I supported for 3 years turned me into a punchline. But before I tell you what happened next, let me take you back to how this all started. Troy and I met during the weirdest time of my life. It was during the pandemic, back when everyone was stuck inside and things felt a little apocalyptic. My apartment had this freak pipe burst that flooded the entire kitchen, and Troy was the emergency contractor sent out to assess the damage. He was funny, charming, in a rough around the edges kind of way, and he made me laugh during a time when I really needed to laugh. He kept discovering new problems in the walls, so he ended up coming back to my place for almost 2 weeks straight. At the time, I thought he was being thorough. Now, I'm pretty sure he was dragging it out just to keep seeing me. And it worked. I found myself looking forward to his visits. We'd talk while he worked, sometimes for hours. I've always been a little awkward around new people, but Troy made it feel easy, natural. 6 months later, we were dating seriously, and after just 8 months, he moved in. Yes, I know, too fast. But his lease was ending, and he said it didn't make sense to keep paying for two places. I had a steady job as a UX designer, and he was, in his words, between real estate gigs. He promised it was just temporary, that he was building his business and things would turn around soon. Spoiler alert, they didn't. By the end of the first year, I was covering most of our rent, utilities, and groceries. But I told myself that relationships take compromise, that balance sometimes looks uneven, that it was just a rough patch. Troy always had some excuse. The market's weird right now, or my mentor's screwing me over. He had a new villain every month, his boss, his clients, his own family. He'd send these long voice messages after fights with them. Some were full-on screaming rants. I never knew why I saved them. Maybe some part of me knew I'd need them one day. Turns out, I did. Looking back now, I don't know how I missed it. Or maybe I just didn't want to see it. Troy wasn't just unlucky, he was toxic. He'd come home ranting about people all the time, how his mentor was a washed-up fraud, how his previous clients were idiots who don't deserve property, how his mom was a manipulative cow who never supported his dreams. His dad? A spineless loser. His words, not mine. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Real estate is tough, the world was still recovering. And Troy? He said he just needed one big break. But I started noticing patterns. Every time something went wrong, it was always someone else's fault. He never took responsibility. Not once. And those voice messages? I started saving them, not even on purpose. I'd play one, feel uneasy, and instead of deleting it, I'd just favorite it or download it. A few were so cruel, so venomous, that they left me staring at the wall, wondering if this was the same man who once brought me soup when I was sick. There was one message I'll never forget. It was after his mom refused to co-sign a loan for him to get a second car. He screamed into the phone, "You're a useless parasite! I should have been adopted by someone who didn't ruin their own life." Then he laughed, like it was funny. I should have ended things right there, but I didn't. Because for every cruel message, there was a sweet moment. He'd make me breakfast in bed once a month, rub my feet after long days. Tell me he couldn't have gotten this far without me. That last part, it felt like something. Like maybe I mattered. By the second year, I was paying for 80% of everything. Rent, groceries, his phone bill, even part of his credit card debt. Why? Because Troy kept saying, "This is temporary, babe. Once my license kicks in and I get clients, we'll flip the roles. I promise." He told me I was his rock, his partner. That building an empire takes time. He said he was lucky to have someone who understood the struggle. I repeated those words in my head every time I got his lunch delivered to his open house, or lent him gas money, or filled out yet another job application for him because he said he was too busy. But the worst part? I started keeping it all to myself. I stopped telling Jasmine the truth. I'd say things were fine, or that Troy was figuring it out, because I didn't want her, or anyone, to know just how much I was giving and just how little I was getting back. I didn't realize it then, but I was ashamed. Ashamed of how much of myself I had given away. Until 6 months ago, when Troy's car broke down, he had just landed a new listing, and of course, it was hours away. His beloved red BMW coupe, that he couldn't afford in the first place, needed repairs. Badly. He was devastated. Called it his dream car. Said his career would crash without it. And me? Like a fool, I said. I'll help. No, worse. I took over the entire repair loan. That's how deep I was. I wasn't his girlfriend anymore. I was his emergency fund, his PR manager, his therapist, his backup plan. But apparently, I was never his equal, and I'd learned just how disposable he thought I was. Very soon. 6 months passed. I paid the loan. I covered rent. I picked up his dry cleaning. I supported him in every way I knew how. And when Troy finally passed his real estate exam and got his license, I cried. Actual tears of pride. So when our 3-year anniversary came around last week, I wanted it to feel earned. I made a reservation at Ciel, this upscale rooftop restaurant downtown, with glass balconies and a skyline view that makes you forget the city's noise. We had talked about going there since year 1. But we never did, because we couldn't afford it. Well, I still couldn't. But I saved, for weeks, skipped lunches, worked extra hours, bought a forest green silk dress, curled my hair, did my own nails. Troy texted around 6:30. Running a little late. Head in and grab our table? I smiled and typed back, no worries. I'll see you soon. That was the last message I got from him that night. I arrived at 7 p.m. sharp, gave them my name. The hostess smiled and led me to a corner table with a view of the Capitol building. It was perfect. At 7:15, I ordered water and kept refreshing my phone. At 7:30, I texted twice. Everything okay? Traffic bad? Nothing. By 7:45, the waiter, sweet guy named Leo, asked if I wanted to order or wait. I said, I'll wait. He's just running late. My voice cracked. I hated that it cracked. At 8 o'clock, I called him. Straight to voicemail. At 8:15, I called again. Same result. Other couples around me were laughing, sharing dessert, clinking wine glasses. I sat alone, watching the ice in my water melt into nothing. I should have left. Any sane person would have. But I stayed. I stayed because I thought I mattered. Because I believed he'd walk through the door, flowers in hand, apologizing breathlessly. And at 8:48 p.m., he did walk in. Just not the way I imagined. Troy strolled in wearing ripped jeans, no jacket, and that smug grin I used to think was charming. Behind him were 3 of his guy friends, loud, buzzed, laughing like they were about to hit a club. They spotted me instantly, and Troy pointed like I was a zoo exhibit. Then he said it, loud, clear, cruel. Told y'all she'd still be here. Like a loyal little house cat. His friends burst out laughing. One of them, Dean, I think, nudged him and added, Man, you weren't kidding. She's trained. That's scary loyalty. They walked over, took the seats across from me without asking. Troy kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong and whispered, Relax. We're just celebrating. Big week for me. I blinked. You brought them to our anniversary dinner? He shrugged and said, We're all celebrating. You wouldn't have paid for all this if I didn't pass, right? Then he grabbed my chin with 2 fingers, turned my face to his, and said with a smirk, You look tense. Did you actually think this was going to be romantic? That's adorable. I stared at him, this man I had loved, protected, believed in. He waved at the waiter. Get her another wine, but don't bring food. She's watching her figure. More laughter. Something cracked inside me, but not anger, not yet. What I felt was clarity, cold, calm, and terrifyingly quiet. Because for the first time in 3 years, I saw him for what he really was. And I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, watching Troy laugh with his friends like this was his night, like I was the afterthought. They were ordering appetizers, lobster bites, sliders, imported whiskey, and I could barely hear anything over the blood rushing in my ears. Every time they made a joke at my expense, my face stayed still. Every time Troy leaned in to mock me, my hands stayed calm. I picked up my wine glass, took a long, steady sip, and said, "Excuse me for a moment. I just need to make a quick work call." Troy waved me off like I was background noise. I walked toward the restroom, my heels clicking on the marble floor, back straight, shoulders high. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. I was done. Done playing the supportive partner. Done being embarrassed. Done waiting. That's when the plan started forming. I locked myself in the private restroom and stared at my reflection. Eyes dry, smile gone. But my mind had never been sharper. I pulled out my phone and opened Telegram. I had 3 years' worth of voice messages from Troy saved in my favorites folder. Messages where he called his boss a con artist in khakis, his mentor a fraud who steals listings, and his mom a leech who ruined his childhood. I had messages where he bragged about not paying taxes, joked about how women are just wallets with feelings, and, most importantly, mocked me. He once told Dean in a voice message, "Sienna, she's basically my investor. I'll keep her around until I level up." That one was dated 2 months ago, and yes, I had downloaded it. I texted Jasmine, "Can you pick me up in 10 minutes? No questions. Just park near the East Valet." Her response came instantly, "On my way." Then I walked out of the restroom, smiled at the waiter, and said, "I'll take the wine and only the wine. The gentleman will be covering the rest." He blinked, then nodded solemnly. I returned to the table, took one last look at Troy and his friends, who were now debating whether the oysters or steak tartare would be more Instagram-worthy, and leaned over to Troy. "I just got called in for something. Big project at work. Can't miss it." He didn't even look up from his phone. "Cool, babe. Just leave your card with the waiter before you go." I smiled, genuinely this time. "Don't worry, I already did." Then I turned and walked out. The moment I stepped into Jasmine's car, she looked at me and said, "What the hell happened?" I just whispered, "He brought his friends to our anniversary dinner. He made me wait 2 hours to mock me." Jasmine's mouth fell open, but I wasn't ready to vent, not yet. Instead, I opened my notes app and started making a list. 1. His email. I set it up, and he never changed the password. 2. His real estate login, stored on my laptop. 3. His banking app, where I made his course payments. 4. His Google Drive, synced with my devices. 5. His social media. Lami, Dabishis, where I helped build his personal brand. And of course, 6. The voice messages. I wasn't going to scream, cry, or throw drinks. No. That night, I would rest. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, I'd burn the foundation he built his fake little world on, with his own words as the match. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was crying, not because I was hurting, but because I was planning. I sat on Jasmine's couch with my laptop open, hoodie up, fingers flying across the keyboard like I was coding a digital takedown. Except, I didn't need to hack a thing. Troy had handed me every password, every login, every shred of access over the past 3 years, because, in his mind, I was the organized one. In mine, I was now his reckoning. Step 1. The car loan. I logged into his banking app, the one I used to make monthly payments for that red BMW he loved more than he ever loved me. The last payment I'd made, just days ago, was still marked processing. I called the bank, explained I'd been manipulated into covering payments for a car that didn't belong to me, and asked what options I had. The rep, Janice, was incredibly kind. She asked for any supporting documentation. So I sent, Screenshots of texts where Troy admitted the car was his dream ride, and only in my name so it doesn't mess with his credit. A voice message he once sent Dean, bragging, "She pays for the car, the gas, the insurance. I just drive. It's beautiful." Janice went silent for a few seconds. Then she said, "We can flag this for fraudulent arrangement and pull the final payment while we investigate. You may receive a reversal in 3-5 business days." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, one match, one spark. Step 2, the voice clips. I created a new Telegram account using a burner number. Nothing traceable. Then I opened the archive of voice messages Troy had sent me over the years. Most of them while he paced angrily in the apartment, ranting about everyone who didn't treat him like the misunderstood genius he believed he was. I selected the most brutal ones. Waiki. One where he called his boss at Falcon Realty a sack of crap with a fake Rolex and zero IQ. Another where he mocked his mom, saying, "She can't even write a check without asking my dad. Dumb as bricks." A third where he told Dean, "I'd leave Sienna if I found someone hotter with money, but for now, she's basically my sponsor." Then I attached them, no captions, no commentary, and hit send. One to his boss, one to his mother, one to his mentor. I added only one sentence with each. Thought you should hear what he says about you when you're not around. Step 3, digital exorcism. I went down the list. Netflix, changed the password. Spotify, removed his devices from the family plan I paid for. Google Drive, locked him out. Instagram, logged in and downloaded his DM history with a girl named Alyssa, just in case. Email, flagged suspicious activity and changed the recovery address to nothing. It wasn't revenge. It was eviction. I wasn't punishing him. I was removing him from every space he had no right to occupy anymore. At 7:12 a.m., the phone calls started. Unknown numbers, probably his friends. At 7:26, I got the first voicemail from him. "What the hell did you do to my bank? Why was there a tow truck at my building? What the Sienna?" I didn't answer. I just sipped the coffee Jasmine had made, smiled at my phone, and said to no one in particular, "Oh, honey, that's just the beginning." Because Troy thought he'd embarrassed me with one cruel comment in a fancy restaurant. But what he didn't know is that I'd been quietly recording his downfall for years. And now, I was just hitting play. By the time the sun came up, Troy's world was already cracking. The first real hit came at 9:14 a.m. A panicked text from Troy that simply said, "Why is there a tow truck at my building? Did you cancel the car loan? Are you insane?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The bank had done exactly what they said. They flagged the account, paused the final payment, and contacted the lender. Since the car was in his name only, and I'd submitted proof that all payments were made under false pretenses, the lender didn't hesitate. That beautiful red BMW? Gone. Hooked and hauled before he could finish brushing his teeth. At 10:03 a.m., I got a screenshot from Jasmine. It was a post from Troy's Instagram. Public, of course, because he always fancied himself some kind of personal brand. The post was a blurry mirror selfie with the caption, "People love to tear you down when you're finally winning. But I'll bounce back. Watch me." And the kicker? His comments were chaos. Might, one said, "Bro, what happened with Falcon Realty?" Mayum, another, "Why did your mom delete all your pics?" And then there was Alyssa. "So this is why you ghosted me last night? Wow." Apparently, she got my silent message too. At noon, I got an email from Falcon Realty HR, the subject line, Workplace Conduct, Urgent Review. Turns out Troy's boss, after receiving that voice clip where he called him a clueless gremlin in fake designer shoes, had escalated things. HR wanted to know if I had any additional messages, any context. I gave them exactly 3. No fluff, just the purest, most self-sabotaging audio clips you can imagine. One where he admitted to padding open house numbers to make himself look more impressive. Another where he bragged about leaving listings unlocked overnight because, who cares? The rich don't check. and a third where he literally said, "Half of them don't even know I'm not certified for commercial spaces. Who's gonna check?" I ended the email with, "All recordings were voluntarily sent to me via voice message. I did not record or edit any content." Their reply? "Thank you. This confirms our internal concerns. We'll handle it from here." At 2 p.m., I was reorganizing my bookshelf when my phone buzzed. Blocked number, voicemail. It was Troy. Again. This time, his voice was hoarse, like he'd been yelling, or crying, or both. "Sienna, please, you made your point, okay? Can we just talk? You didn't have to do all this. You ruined my career. My car's gone. My parents won't speak to me. Alyssa blocked me. I'm sleeping on Dean's couch. Just call me." I sat down, held the phone in my hand for a few seconds, then saved the voicemail under a new folder. Evidence. Whining. And moved on with my day. Around sunset, I got a message from an unknown number. This time it was his mother. The same woman Troy used to rant about as controlling, emotionally useless, clueless. Her message? "Sienna, I'm sorry. I had no idea he felt that way about us. I listened to the messages. I'm heartbroken. I don't even recognize the son I raised. Thank you for opening my eyes." No accusations, no anger. Just a mother, grieving the version of her son she thought she knew. I replied with a simple, "I didn't do this to hurt you. I just let you hear what I've been hearing for years." And that was the first time I felt it. Not anger, not bitterness. Relief. Because for once, I wasn't the only one carrying the weight of who Troy really was. And the more people who heard his truth, the lighter I became. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No buzzing phone, no calls, no passive-aggressive texts from unknown numbers. Just sunlight pouring into Jasmine's guest room and the soft sound of her cat purring beside me. And yet, I still had unfinished business. I had given Troy 3 years of my life, my time, my money, my energy, my love. What I had left of him now? 15 garbage bags. When I got back to my apartment, I opened the door slowly, half expecting chaos. Instead, it was just still, quiet, empty in the best possible way. I locked the door behind me and turned to face the mess. Troy's clothes were still hanging in the closet, his shaving cream still on the sink, his Xbox still plugged in under my TV, like he was just going to stroll back in and pick up where he left off. No, not anymore. I started with the clothes. No folding, no mercy, just handfuls into black contractor bags, shirts, jeans, overpriced sneakers I had bought for his birthday, all jammed together like clutter I should have thrown out years ago. I moved to the bathroom. His cologne, his toothbrush, his half-used vitamins, all dumped. Then the kitchen, protein powders, shaker bottles, 3 different brands of hot sauce he never used but insisted on displaying like trophies. By the time I was done, I had 15 full bags lined up by the door. It was surreal. 3 years of a relationship, reduced to 15 bags of noise I no longer had to hear. That afternoon, Jasmine borrowed her brother's truck and pulled up in front of my building. We loaded the bags together in silence. When we reached the dump, the guy at the gate raised an eyebrow. "All this yours?" I smiled. "Not anymore." He nodded like he understood more than I said. We backed up to the dumpster, and then, one by one, we tossed them. The sound of fabric and plastic and tangled wires hitting metal was oddly satisfying. Therapeutic, even. And when the last bag went in, I turned to Jasmine and said, "Let's go. I have a locksmith coming at 4. Back at my apartment, I wiped every surface down like I was cleansing bad energy. I replaced the bed sheets, rearranged the furniture, hung up art prints Troy once said were too girly. I even lit a citrus candle he claimed gave him headaches. He never had migraines. He just hated anything that wasn't about him. At 4 p.m. sharp, the locksmith arrived. I handed him my old keys and watched as he changed the lock on my front door. And with it, the rules of my life. At 5:27 p.m., I got another voicemail. blocked number again. But the voice? Still unmistakably him. You threw my stuff away? My vintage Jordans? My records? Are you insane? Do you even realize what you've done? I need those things for work, for life. I saved the voicemail under a new folder. Delusional. Then I played it one more time, just for fun. Later that night, Jasmine brought over Thai food and a bottle of wine. We sat on the floor, surrounded by soft light and clean air, and absolutely zero reminders of the man who used to call this place home. I looked around and whispered, half to myself, half to her. I think this is the first time I've actually heard my apartment breathe. Jasmine raised her glass. To fresh air, and to never mistaking survival for love again. We clinked glasses. I smiled, for real this time. Because it wasn't just Troy's stuff I had thrown away today. It was every excuse I'd made for him. Every lie I'd told myself about who he was. Every version of me that accepted less than I deserved. And that, more than anything, was the closure I needed. It's been exactly 1 week since that night at the rooftop restaurant. 7 days since I waited in that silk dress with a glass of wine, and realized the man I loved never really existed. Troy hasn't stopped trying to reach me. After I changed the locks and dumped his belongings, the messages escalated. 1 minute he's apologizing, the next he's blaming me, then he's begging, then threatening. His last voicemail said, "You'll regret this. You think anyone's ever going to love someone like you again?" I didn't save that one, not because it hurt, but because it didn't matter. What Troy doesn't realize is, I don't need revenge. I don't need to scream or block his car with mine, or slash tires like the girl in his stories. He thought I was a doormat with patience, but what I was patient with purpose. I gave him the space to reveal himself, to me, to his boss, to his friends, to his family. And when he did, I let him speak, and then I let them listen. I didn't ruin Troy's life. He did. I just made sure there was no rug for him to sweep it under. A few days ago, I ran into his mom at the grocery store. She looked like she'd aged 5 years, but she was calm. She stopped me, gently, and asked if she could say something. She didn't defend him. She didn't ask me to undo anything. She just said, "Thank you." I raised him, but I never really saw him. Not like you did. I wish I had. I hugged her. It was awkward and short, but real. Because there's a difference between someone who's complicit and someone who was lied to. I've changed my phone number, gone private on social media, set new boundaries with everyone. And you know what? It's peaceful. The silence is no longer suffocating. It's clean. My apartment looks different now, warmer, brighter, more me. Jasmine helped me hang a gallery wall I'd been putting off for 2 years because Troy didn't like clutter. I adopted a cat from the local shelter last weekend. Her name is Nova. She's feisty, independent, and has a habit of knocking over anything that doesn't belong. A girl after my own heart. I've started redirecting the money I used to spend on Troy's car, food, bills, and streaming services into a savings account. So far, there's over $2,100 in there. I'm planning a solo trip to Seattle next month. It'll be my first time traveling alone. It scares me, but so did leaving him. And now, I'm just excited. As for Troy, last I heard from a mutual acquaintance, he lost his job at Falcon Realty officially. The voice clips apparently triggered an HR audit, and he was found in breach of multiple ethics codes. The car? Repossessed, sold at auction for less than what was owed. He now owes more on a car he doesn't even own. Alyssa dumped him, twice, then got back with him, then dumped him again. He's sleeping on a friend's futon, trying to spin his story like he's the victim of a crazy ex. The only problem? His own words told the truth before I ever did. I used to think closure meant getting an apology. Now I know better. Closure is choosing yourself. Closure is peace with no explanation. Closure is walking away from a fire you didn't start and refusing to go back just to prove you survived it. So now I ask you, what was your favorite moment in this story? Was it when the car got towed? When his boss heard the voice clips? When the garbage bags hit the dumpster? Or was it the quiet part, when she finally breathed in her own space and said, "This is mine again"? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading every one, because stories like this, they aren't just revenge, they're rebirth.